Hey guys, welcome back to another YouTube video. Today's topic is going to be a bit more serious. I'll be talking about Genshin in Wuthering Waves. I'll be giving out my opinion, what I think. I'll be touching on quite a few topics and sharing some harsh truths, things that might include LGBTQ topics, violence, and other sensitive stuff. So if you're easily offended, grossed out, or just have a soft heart, or you just really love Genshin or Withering Waves and you think you're gonna be offended by the game, I advise you not to watch this video. I am not here to attack anybody or stir up drama. I am voicing my opinion, plain and simple. So this is your warning before I begin. Now, let's get started with the video. My beginning with Genshin. I started playing this game when it first released back on September 28th in 2020. It was during the COVID era. I spent most of my time online gaming, and one of the games that I used to play a lot was Genshin. It was my first ever gacha game, and the graphics at the time were really magical, mystical, amazing. I was instantly hooked up. The story was fun, the puzzles were creative, and overall was genuinely completely addictive. And I loved everything about the game. Up until everything changed. Now, keep in mind, I am an OG. I've played for every single event and every piece of content this game has ever came out with. And I have put so many hours into it. Almost all of my nations are 100%. So my opinions are not based on bias or random hate. So I'm not going to be sugarcoating anything. With that said, I want to start talking about the pros of the game first that really stand out. The lore is genuinely amazing. I am in love with the lore. It is really interesting and it's one of the most anticipated storylines with some of the most emotional and heartfelt moments. And I have genuinely cried to so many of the quests just because they're very upsetting and they're very emotional and sad. The music is beautiful. Each region has its own unique soundtrack, which adds a lot to the atmosphere. The combat is easy to understand. Unlike Wuthering Waves is not that in-depth, there's not much to it other than the fact that there's elemental system which is kind of interesting. The voice acting is pretty good, and the events, for me personally, are quite fun. They don't last long enough, which kind of force you to play before they're gone, unlike Honkai Star Rail, for example, or Wuthering Waves, who have 20 days or more until an event actually ends, meaning you do have more time to complete it, which kind of sucks, and I personally do not enjoy it. Unfortunately, there are a lot more cons than there are pros to the game. The lore is genuinely being milked. What does that mean? It has been 5 years and they're still dragging the story. The mystery keeps people interested, sure, but 5 years of vague hints with no real payoff, it does get very frustrating. Artifact RNG is terrible. I have spent months farming artifacts and I still rarely get lucky. When Skirk was released back in June, to this day, for 5 months, I have been doing hard domain and I've only gotten 2 or 3 solid pieces, which is awful for constantly grinding. Unrewarding events, exploration and quests is another really big problem. I have 100% completed every region, as I said earlier. And yeah, you do get some rewards, but compared to the other games like Wuthering Waves and Honkai Star Rail, it is honestly really minimal. If you finish the Archon and World Quest, which by the way take a whole lifetime, fully explore the map, complete events, and grab a few achievements or boss rewards, you're looking at maybe 40 to 55 wishes total. And that might sound decent, but here's the problem. The world and Archon quests are ridiculously long, and a lot of areas are locked behind quests. Combine that with the complete lack of endgame content, and it just starts to feel exhausting and it burns you out really fast. And let's not forget the banner system. Unlike Wuthering Waves' guaranteed 80-pity weapon banner, we can easily lose 50-50 on the character plus the weapon banner, and it's really not that free to play, so you're most likely to either have to save for months or just have to spend money, which is honestly pretty brutal. 40 to 50 wishes is basically nothing unless you're insanely lucky or you're genuinely spending money. The new event that recently came out, Miliastra Wonderland. Literally nobody asked for it. It is clearly just for money, and you can't tell me otherwise. There is nothing rewarding or free about it. Instead of them focusing on the main game, they waste time on making something useless that nobody wanted or anybody will use. Then there's the other problem that we have terrible quality of life on Genshin. Now, mind you, this game has been out for 5 years. There's still no skip button for pointless or repetitive quests, or even the Archon quest. If you've played for the R&R quest back in Sumru, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It took me so long to complete, and then you have to do even more after that, and it's just so pointless. And even every single world quest is so long and it's so repetitive, and there's still no skip button, even though there's a skip button in both Honkai Star Rail, also a Hoyoverse game, and Wuthering Waves, which is just why. When it comes to resin, Genshin is capped at 300, but the Wuthering Waves as well as Honkai Star Rail exceed that limit, reaching up to 700 or more. That gives you a lot more flexibility for grinding, and you're not gated to only have 300 per day, for example. Or if you skipped one day and you couldn't get on, you could get on tomorrow and, go back to grinding without an issue. Now, about the exploration in Genshin. It is very slow and it is frustrating. The movement feels restrictive. Tracking chests and puzzles has been added for quite a while, but it's still basically non-existent. And what I mean by that is, you do have a compass, but that compass kind of shows you one chest, but there's other puzzles that you have to complete. And now in Notcry, they did add another compass, which basically helps you track chests and everything else. But in order for you to track everything, you actually have to get to 90% on that map, on that certain Notcry, part or region, whatever you want to call it, to even see the puzzles. So you're basically once again stuck behind a quest, or you have to complete something to actually gain the whole thing, which is just bullshit. It's not intuitive, it's not interesting. It is basically burning out, because I had to spend maybe 20 minutes looking for a single, like, let's say 2 or 3 chests to actually get to 90%, or to a certain percent to actually get the full, or what we actually need to be added from the beginning. And climbing and gliding can be tedious. In the Wuthering Waves, for example, you can fly, you can jump, you can climb freely. Chests and puzzles in Wuthering Waves is far more intuitive. Exploration is actually fun, and it's not really a chore. The endgame combat in Genshin is another headache. I personally have over 20 fully built 5-star characters, but I still struggle to earn full stars in the Abyss. You actually have to have a specific character for the new Abyss in order to probably beat it, which is stupid. It is once again money hungry, and I think it's just literally unnecessary as fuck. But anyway, maybe it's a skill issue on my end, but I still struggle to earn full stars in the Abyss. The combat itself, it's pretty shallow, right? Like, let's be honest, there's really not much to it. All you do is spam your abilities. You have a healer, he heals you, and there's no dodging, there's no parrying, there's no actual skill that needs to be used. Another issue that we have is that the NPCs are awful. Most of them literally look the same. They have no emotion, no real personality, unlike Wuthering Waves' NPCs. And for a game that's been out for 5 years, that's for that long, it's just sad. It is disappointing. It is literally unforgiving. And not only are the NPCs emotionless, it is also the characters. Most of the characters now have no personality, and at least from what I've seen, I feel like a lot of the characters are now kind of put randomly into the game, and it just doesn't feel like Genshin Impact anymore, because you start into an ancient, mysterious, kind of old-looking city, Mondstadt. And I know there's different regions to the game, now don't get me wrong, but if you're including a certain look of the game and suddenly you're kind of starting to shift it into something like 360 degrees different, that's a really big issue, and I don't really remember the game anymore, and it's not what it used to be. Unreal Engine 5 or another engine is what we need, and I really think it's time for Genshin or Hoyoverse to step up and move to another engine. Maybe that would help the game look better, and they could finally improve the overall movement character expressions, and NPC behavior, because a lot of people say that the engine that we are currently on really limits what we have and what we could have. So if that is truly what it is, and if that's the issue why the game looks so old now, because back in 2020 sure it looked great, but now it does not fit the vibes of 2025 game. So right now everything feels lifeless, especially in areas that are supposed to feel full of people, but they just end up looking empty. And sure, they have improved the character designs, but they just don't feel alive compared to Withering Waves, as I already said. The power balance. So, as I said, new characters constantly change the meta, which isn't a bad thing, but the fact that many of them require specific units to perform well sucks. For example, Skirk needs a Scoffier, Mufrika needs Sitlali, and sure, they can function alone, but to maximize damage, you need these units. And same goes, for example, for Ayak, Ganyu, and Eula needing Shenhe. Now, I don't mind if there's a unit that you need maybe to help your team be better, but for you to need it because it will maximize your character is just a money-hungry thing to do. And, you can't really disagree. Player choice means nothing. Our main character, the Traveler, Lumine, or Ether, they barely speak and mostly we just nod, despite being the main protagonists. It would be really cool if either our choices actually had a purpose and it would change something in the game, just like in Wuthering Waves, for example, speak and actually have an opinion for themselves instead of Paimon constantly talking over us. Lazy nation design. After Fontaine, it really feels like Hoiverse got lazy. I expected Natlan to be fierce. Fire, lava, chaos, war, dragons. Not a cute, colorful playground. It doesn't feel dangerous or emotionally heavy for a nation that is meant to be suppressed by the abyss. The cultural inspiration that they use for this nation, it's barely represented. It's just a little bit of decor and some graffiti to even show up for it. Not quite similar. It's visually pretty, sure, but I expected something colder, snow, ancient, mysterious, maybe perhaps a little bit more modern or forward thinking, because that's what we know about Snezhnaya. And personally, it just didn't meet my expectations, and I'm pretty disappointed by both. Notcry just ends up kind of looking like Billabog from Honkai Star Rail, but with a feeling of a struggling underdeveloped town. The worst fan base ever. Boku no Hero Academia 2.5. Honestly, the amount of delusion and ego in part of the community is insane. Every time a new game releases, some Genshin fans jump on it, claiming it's a Genshin copy just to stir up drama or prove their game is superior. It's exhausting. The same people who call Genshin perfect are often the first to attack others for having a different opinion, even sending death threats to the creators, devs, or voice actors over fictional characters. And I wonder why they attack them, because Genshin is really not that great, and they're just kind of jealous that Genshin doesn't have these stuff. And it gets worse. There were reports of a small toxic part of the fandom actually harming real animals, black cats, because they hated Scaramouche and associated him with cats in a cutscene. Over 2D pixels. Like, what the actual fuck? Thankfully, most of the community condemned it, but it still shows how far the toxicity can go, and has gone. Then there's the whole quote-unquote shipping mess. I don't care who anyone ships or what people headcanon. I don't care who you like. I don't give a f about that shit. Love who you want. That's your thing. But some fans take it way too far by forcing certain narratives, like insisting characters must be gay or straight because of vibes, or shipping siblings and calling it representation. That is not diversity, that is delusion. Genshin's world is inspired by ancient myth and culture. Not every character needs to fit a modern identity label. We should stop putting LGBTQ in every game. If you want some real-life simulator, go play Sims. And at the end of the day, people need to remember, these are fictional characters. They do not exist they don't know you exist. Stop projecting, stop forcing ideas on others, and maybe just enjoy the game again. I just want to mention that earlier, when I was scrolling through all of the information for the video, of course, you go to Genshin Impact date release, or you look for Genshin Impact. You scroll down a little bit. Of course, there's always questions about if they're gay, if they're a femboy, and whatever else. And the most disgusting thing that I want to read to you guys is this fucking thing that I found yesterday. Are any Genshin characters LGBTQ? And as I mentioned, people ship brothers, sisters, they ship incest, and young fucking kids that have no idea what LGBTQ is. And Lini and Femine are brothers, and they are widely regarded as gay for each other, apparently, or sometimes as bisexual, along with Lynette. And the person writing this is saying that personally, along with a few other ships here like Chongyun and Xingqu, make me uncomfortable because of their ages and the incest. But a lot of people are fine with it because why? Because they're fucking fictional characters. I don't think that really matters if they're fictional characters. You are just you are all weird fucking people, period. If you find this normal, you're weird. Let's talk about Wuthering Waves. I started playing this game when it got released also, and I can't lie, it is amazing. The movement and freedom is refreshing, smooth, and realistic. The world is vibrant, alive, and emotional, and the overall game design is just great. I fell in love with it immediately, and I was instantly hooked, and I still am. Now I want to talk about all of the pros that the game has and why it's actually a really great game. First, amazing character designs. Every single character has their own personality, and they all have small little details that resemble them, and I really, really love that. Second, a smooth, deep, and unique combat. Third, great music, voice acting, and graphics. 5, very good quality of life. 6, devs actually care about the game and they constantly improve it, and I love that. 7, very free-to-play friendly. 8, rewarding events and quests and explorations. Now let's talk about the cons. They're definitely not as many or as much as Genshin, but there are still quite a few cons that personally bother me. Repetitive events. A lot of the community seems to only care about fighting focused events, and they constantly try and force the devs to bring them out, which isn't really my thing. I do prefer the cozy events with puzzles and smaller challenges like the ones in Honkai and Genshin, where you either have to brew coffee or drinks or something else. They're quicker, they're more fun, and they don't feel like a grind, and you don't have to invest as much time into them. Speaking of events, the endgame events take way too long. There are about 2 or 3 that reset each month, and having to spend 2 hours or more depending on what you have to do on each one just to keep up feels really exhausting, and it's honestly more of a chore than fun personally to me. The limited event variety. Once you complete everything, there aren't that many new events coming up, so it kind of starts to feel like you're stuck in a loop because you log in, farm, do dailies, and then you log off. And another con is that one fishing event, and seriously, that. But overall, there aren't that many cons, as I already said, and the devs actually listen to player feedback, and they make quality of life improvements, and they constantly tweak the game and its environment, which is something I really love and I enjoy. And when you do look in the open world, you can definitely tell that the devs, as well as the characters of course, you can definitely tell that devs really do love their game, and they do spend a lot of time on the little details that maybe sometimes people don't notice, but it makes a really big difference. So with everything that I have mentioned, which game is better? Honestly, it does depend on what you're looking for, but if we compare everything I have talked about, Wuthering Waves comes on top for me. Genshin has amazing lore, music, and the character designs are okay, like they have ups and downs, but they're not the best. But the game has some really big major issues, like the toxic community behavior, frustrating RNG and artifact grind, unrewarding events and exploration, slow endgame, and a really shitty quality of life. And these are problems that have not been addressed in 5 years. And let's not forget the fucking skip button. The story pacing feels really dragged out. The nations feel really lazy at times. And the fanbase can be, well, insane and mentally ill. Wuthering Waves, on the other hand, I'm not saying that their fan base of Wuthering Waves is not bad, but it's definitely not as bad as the Boku no Hero Academia fucking Genshin. Anyways, Wuthering Waves, on the other hand, nails so many things that Genshin struggles with. A smooth and fun combat, amazing character designs, a very vibrant world that feels alive, rewarding and well-paced events, somewhat, and devs who actually listen to the community. And sure, there are the minor cons that I mentioned earlier, but overall, it does feel pretty polished now. It does feel fair, and it's genuinely fun to play without all of the frustration. Some people even mocked Wuthering Waves, and when I say some people, I think you know exactly who the I mean, saying, "Oh, it's doing worse because people are spending money on it." But that is literally because it is so free to play friendly. The spending is not necessary. You literally get at least 70 plus pulls in a single patch without having to whale or spend money. And compare that to Genshin, which comes out in the top 3 revenue charts because, well, duh, you basically have to whale for characters or weapons because it's not as forgiving to the players. And at the end of the day, I still like Genshin. I will continue playing it because it's a nostalgic game to me. But Wuthering Waves feels like a game that respects the player and it balances challenge with fun and it keeps you engaged without making you feel like you're constantly chasing your wallet. So from what I've mentioned, Wuthering Waves wins. And I will say it again, this opinion is not based, it is just my take on the facts and it's my personal experience. But now I want to hear from you. Which game do you think is better and why? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I am super curious to see what you all think. And with that said, I do hope you enjoyed my take on this topic. Make sure to check out my links. I stream every single week, Thursday, Friday at 7 p.m. GMT plus 3 time, and on Saturday at 3 p.m. So if you have the time, join me on Twitch or TikTok. And I will see you in the next one.